the people trying to come in from the lobby. So welcome everybody to this short insight seminar in relation to summer job search or in summer intern job search. Just to introduce everybody, I suppose I'm speaking first. Maybe I'll introduce myself. Brendan Lally here, a member of the careers team. We also have head of careers Gavin Connell and Martin Konzak. Martin is a co-op student in the UL Careers Service. So he's volunteered, Martin, haven't you, to give the student perspective and concerns in relation to the fateful job search for at this time coming into summer. We're going to use a career planning process that we use in the careers service just to frame our discussion today. And we won't go into it too much detail, but it is a very helpful process be it for a graduate job search or summer job search or internships. So we'll be kind of stepping through that to frame the conversation this lunchtime. And the first piece of this is understanding yourself. So I suppose when you're looking for a summer position, it's very tempting to just blanket bomb the entire, let's say Limerick City with your CV. And we would probably encourage you to take a step back firstly and just to look at the roles that you're applying for. It is slightly different, I suppose, at summer stage rather than your graduate position, which is very kind of targeted. But to step back, and what we mean by that is to consider, your own preferences, your own skills and personality styles, and how they are framed with the environment that you're applying for. The employer will very much be interested in that, and that'll be their first port of call. Obviously, experience is paramount. That's the first question typically in a summer job, and many of you will not have any experience, so you will have to introduce yourself and maybe market yourself and sell yourself as to why somebody with no experience would be suitable, let's say, for a job in their restaurant or a retail position. Now, we do have some tools available in the Career Service on the UL website that we would like to direct you towards. And that one website there, Martin, you might be able to put in, or Gavin, the URL in the chat box. That'll be Team Focus. So Team Focus is a software partner platform that we have where any UL student can put in their student ID and UL email and do some assessments. And so these would be psychological assessments that would, one that we would recommend would be Type Dynamic Indicator, TDI, and that'll give you a robust report at the end of it based on, I suppose, how you've answered the assessment. And it'll give you vocabulary, it'll give you detailed descriptions about your strengths, your personality, descriptors, etc. There's also, I suppose, careers inventory. There's Gavin can jump in here. There's an endless amount of assignments, I suppose, assessments you can do, but this would be no harm as a first port of call, because as I mentioned there, typically if you get some face time with a decision maker for a summer job, the very first question out of their mouth is, okay, Brendan, sit down, tell me about yourself. So it's very, very important that you have, 4 or 5 selling points about yourself to be able to describe themselves and to tailor it to their needs. And you might have to adapt that from retail versus a bar position, etc., etc. So that's the first step. And thanks, Gavin has put the URL for Team Focus into the chat box there. So that would be an action item to get you started on your summer job search as we move through this process. The next step then, when you've got some vocabulary, you've got, I suppose, a clearer picture of how you're going to describe yourself and where maybe you might best fit, would be to look and research what's out there. So I suppose, firstly, before you jump into a summer job, let's say, from the career service point of view, you might look and see, would there be an internship that would fit with your course of study? Okay, now the various companies that run internships or summer internships will have the majority of those openings on either Careers Connect, which is our own platform in UL, or they'll have them on LinkedIn. So if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, it's very, very easy to set up a basic profile. And we give classes, obviously, to enhance that and make it the best profile possible. But even just get the search capability to set up an initial profile, and you can have a look and see what summer internships are available for your line of study. I come from the med tech industry. And I know that, so that would be, manufacturing, would be like, Medtronic, Boston Scientific, we're in Galway, but closer to our campus in UL, you have Johnson & Johnson, Regeneron, etc. And they have some summer positions that wouldn't be internship, but they might be entry-level positions, which for example, if you're studying engineering, it would be very advantageous to have that brand and that experience, that clean room or manufacturing experience as a summer position on your CV before you go to co-op or for a graduate position. And we have a question there. We'd like to welcome Martin in at this time. It's a student question. Do you want to just read that out for us there, Martin?
Obviously, what sectors would you recommend students target mostly? Like you say, would it be worthwhile for them to pursue it in the role of their study, or would it be more worthwhile just going for other sectors?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question.
Can I jump in there, if you
Go ahead there, Gavin. Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, brother. So I actually think that's a great question, right? Okay. And the reason being is because it depends on the individual, right? Okay. If you're interested in just earning some money, and that could be either for, we were just talking about earlier on, accommodation for next semester, or car insurance, or a holiday, right? Okay. So the sectors that are in high demand at the moment, if you're thinking about staying local, right? Okay, is anything in the retail space, right? Okay. Anything that's in the kind of hospitality. I'm actually doing a session with Fáilte Ireland actually this weekend for all of the employer network there, and they're screaming out for people, right? Okay, so sector-wise, there is shortages everywhere, is what I would say to you. It's definitely in that kind of summer part-time internship-ish kind of area. So if it's just about making a few bucks and just getting yourself through the summer and into whatever for next semester, or even kind of just taking a break from studies, whatever. I would say every sector, it just depends on the area that you're interested in. And they all sound lovely, right? Okay. But generally speaking, depending on the sector that you're going into, you need to have done some sort of research, right? Okay. Because even if you have no experience, to Brendan's point earlier on, they still want you to know what they do, right? Okay. They still want you to be aware that if you're going into hospitality, that it's early mornings, or it could be late evenings, depending if you're doing bar work or if you're just doing general cleaning. A lot of it is you, and Brendan mentioned this earlier on, is around knowing your personality, your emotional intelligence, all that kind of stuff, is really that they're all front of house, right? Okay, a lot of them, even though you may not be standing at the reception or a bar or whatever it is, you're going to be meeting customers all of the time. Even if you're working stacking shelves somewhere, you're going to find you're dealing with customers, and you really need to be aware of their customers and how you would be around them, right? So if that's just from a cash perspective, that's just understand the market that's out there. Make sure that you actually go in and you actually speak to a manager in a shop, right? Or whatever, or bar, or whatever the case is. If it's that you're actually looking around kind of career progression, or getting that kind of employability, we'll call it, agenda, kind of more focused, right? Okay, so this is where you're kind of saying, you know what, I don't have experience here, and it could be very beneficial for me to my placement for co-op, or it could be that actually I'm graduating and I just didn't get the opportunity previously to get work experience, and I'm looking to get some time there. So Brendan mentioned this earlier on, right? Okay, that LinkedIn, right? Okay, also our own Careers Connect has a lot of internships, right? Okay, in there. A lot of them are closed, a lot of them are done. A lot of the big employers have actually done that kind of work already in the recruitment side of it, but not all of them. But there are a tremendous amount out there. Same thing. Do your research is really important, and the sector that you're kind of mentioning is depending on the course of study, but equally it depends on those two things I mentioned. Is it one that you're just looking, and there's nothing wrong with saying I'm just looking to earn some cash? That's a reality in life, right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? Okay, because everybody's in a different space, right? But if it's around your internship, right? Okay, in relation to getting some valuable kind of employability skills as part of your, I mean, you'll pick up employability skills regardless of which one you pick there, right? But if it's one that's very focused on your degree, we'll call it, well, then the sectors that are in high demand is all. Not to put too fine a point on it. We see employers coming to us at the moment, right? Okay, and they are talking about that their recruitment demands are higher than 2009, 2008, 2009, which is when Brendan and myself will kind of show our age here. We'll remember the peak of the demand that was out
Celtic
there.
Tiger, yeah.
Yeah, it was not that it was crazy, but it was definitely a very strong market, and that seems to be there as well, right? Okay, so I suppose that's kind of looking in the context of Ireland. If you're going to go abroad, right, okay, which I have a funny feeling that a lot of students are just itching to get on a plane or a boat and leave the island for short term, long term, right, okay, just to be able to get out of the island, right, okay.
I think we're looking at that. We have that, Gavin, actually on another
okay,
slide.
well,
Yeah, so we're going to go into that. But a lot of, to your point, Gavin, a lot of the positions, and I use my own background in manufacturing. A lot of the bigger global companies, if they're have a manufacturing site, they might outsource the summer jobs to an agency. So when you pitch directly at the company, you might be redirected just to prepare to that to some agency. So the agency take care of all the temporary, and that mightn't be just for manufacturing, it could be for office-based roles, etc. So I suppose it's about finding out what agency that the company use, and normally the reception would be able to direct you in that space. So some good points there. Thanks a million, Gavin. And just to move away from maybe job websites for a moment, and we have, I suppose, different styles of job search that we talk about in the career service, and we talk about the proactive versus the reactive. Maybe I'll just take the reactive first, which would be approaching the companies, approaching the HR departments, the front desks, etc., all those recruitment agencies, and you literally, submit your CV. Now they might not take a hard copy off your hands; they might put you in, they want you to go through the website or an email address, but you then have to sit and wait for some reaction to that CV. The other side of the coin is what we call the proactive job search, and this is networking. Basically, this is you being very vocal with friends and family. So the wider family, your uncles, aunts, etc., the neighbours, community groups, any sports clubs, any of the coaches, etc., and let them know that you will be looking for a job. And to Gavin's point, you decide whether you want to find maybe first port of call a job that's related to my area of study, failing that a general position, as Gavin said, just to earn some money during the summer. But you have to vocalize that, and then if people are willing to help you and put a word in or put a CV in, they'll normally start saying, no problem, Brendan, I might have somebody in mind, would you have a CV for me? So maybe before you even start vocalizing your requirements is to get the CV done, and we'll talk about the CV in a moment. There is a thing called the hidden job market that we talk a lot about in the career service, and there's some research and data that shows that the amount of opportunity or an economic opportunity or job opportunities that are advertised versus unadvertised is quite different. So you can see the graph there, 60 to 70% of actual opportunities don't reach the advertisement stage because people are referring in their CVs. It's word of mouth, and that's even more prevalent in the summer job market. And then you have the 30-40% that are advertised, and there's some websites there. Gavin mentioned our own, Careers Connect, is UL Student Life. I think we have somebody on the call from there, and they have some jobs. And Indeed, I think Martin, you mentioned some of your friends, a lot of them using Indeed, Job Alert, but not to forget LinkedIn, which would be a powerhouse, I suppose, in relation to job advertisements. And Gavin mentioned there'll be a seminar coming up in relation to the tourism industry, huge pent up demand there, and they have their own website there, tourismcareers.ie. So not to forget the power of networking, the hidden job market, along with your usual platforms and websites when looking for a job. So then we're moving down, I suppose, the cycle and the process here in relation to planning for your summer job or internship, and we're looking at making choices and taking action. Martin, you had a question here, and I think Gavin touched on it there, in relation to you can read it out there, Martin. Yeah.
As Gavin was mentioning before, would going abroad be a viable option for students? And is there any common difficulties or requirements that they should be aware of before they start applying for roles abroad?
We were joking about this, Gavin, that there must be thousands of students just gagging to get on a plane and get out of Ireland after the last 2 years. Would we be right, Martin?
There's definitely a significant amount of fun to get out, at least for a bit.
Yeah, and that's fair enough. Do you want to take that one, Gavin?
Yeah, I suppose we could come from this from, I won't go country by country because that's gonna just, that'll take us all day, right? Okay, but I suppose the same pent up demand that's in Ireland is international as well, right? Okay, because everybody has been locked up for 2 years in a sense, right? Okay, so I suppose some of the things to be mindful of, right? Okay, if you go into mainland Europe, okay, language barriers are there, right? Okay, so yeah, you can go to certain places and they may take you that you're an English speaker, but they would probably want you to have a second language, right? Okay, and be able to speak in some form, right? Okay, conversational, not necessarily business, but maybe conversational. I suppose in the UK there's a real pent up demand there as well, right? Okay, which is easier to get into, right? Okay, because Ireland just has common entry into the UK, so it's much easier just to transition across. No more than Europe is the same, right? Okay, I suppose where a lot of students do go and have tended to go is on that J1 to the States. I suppose the main difference in the States, right? Okay, has been in the last couple of years. Correct me if I'm wrong there, Brendan. I think you have to have your job before you get to the States, right? Okay.
Yeah.
But a lot of those kind of large kind of, hospitality employers, they're all aware of that, right? Okay. And they sponsor in advance, right? Okay. And what that was just purely the US government just trying to crack down on people just coming in and just floating around and never leaving, right? Okay. So it's just that you're in on a J1, whatever the case is. I would say, and I know this from just family connections, right? Okay, that there is my own brother lives in the States, right? Okay, and he would say that he goes to any kind of restaurant and just can't get staff, right? Okay, it's just cannot get staff, right? Okay, equally they're looking for interns as well, right? Okay, so in kind of no more than just the kind of Irish companies are looking for kind of interns as well, right? Okay, but in some ways the intern issue when you move abroad, right? Okay, is they're not necessarily overly interested in taking an Irish student for 3 months, right? Okay, really what they're thinking about from an intern perspective is I will get this person when they come back to graduate and stuff like that. So they're kind of looking for those people who are in that locale in a way. I don't mean locale as living next door to them, but that they're not leaving the country and may not come back, right? Okay, there's a better chance of that kind of graduate talent pool staying if they're in the same country. That's kind of a piece of research in that. And then equally, Vancouver is the same, like in Canada, right? Okay, Montreal, whatever the case is, same thing. Kind of North America in the same thing. Is high demand, right? Okay, I suppose the only thing you need to be aware of is COVID in all of those contexts, right? Okay, of what is the requirements coming in? Do you need to be vaccinated? Do you need to have a booster? Are you meant to be wearing masks, PCRs, all that kind of stuff? So all these things will add a small bit of expense if you're thinking of going to them, right? Okay, so really get a sense of if you go onto the DFA, the Department of Foreign Affairs website, it actually lists out the requirements in every country as well, right? Okay, so it's good to start that planning now. Like, I mean, some of them will drop a lot of the restrictions as kind of the summer gets closer because they want holidaymakers coming in, so they don't want to make it difficult. But equally, they could just switch off and go the other way, right? Okay, that if there's an outbreak, like you see that's happening in China at the moment, that there's significant numbers and they're shutting cities down and stuff like that. So it can just change overnight, right? Okay,
absolutely.
So it is something to be aware of from that perspective. Yeah.
I do recall my own experience in Chicago and how competitive it was downtown Chicago looking for a summer position. And to your point, Gavin, in relation to internships, that they weren't interested in taking people short term. They wanted to obviously have a return on investment. I actually found that for the summer jobs as well, and I had to tell a little white lie that I was taking a year off college in order to eventually land my first gig. But I learned the hard way because they wanted obviously for people to be available at weekends, etc., like going to college locally. So you have to keep those things in mind. As Gavin said, the competition will be you're competing with the local college kids as well when you're going abroad. Just not to forget, I suppose, the opportunities that the pandemic have opened in relation to the whole area of remote working. And a lot of the websites have changed the filters from the different countries, and they've put in new filter, a new location called remote, and that's going to open up, especially I think this summer. It's going to really, really change the landscape for the first time, that a lot of companies will be putting up internships, etc., and they'll put remote. Now, obviously, the pond is bigger. It'll be literally everybody from no matter what your jurisdiction can go for that job. And then you have to keep in mind, I suppose, and the companies will guide you, the tax implications if you're working, remote, etc. But there's a few websites mentioned there, growremote.ie, and they'd be more for Irish remote positions and Remote Jobs Ireland, etc. So, just to keep that in mind, I think it's a good opportunity. I think it's a good development, and I think it might be of interest to some people. And then we're moving, I suppose, as we move through our planning process, to look at presenting yourself on paper. So you've looked at the market, what's out there, you've taken some actions, whether you're going to look at Limerick, outside Limerick, or indeed abroad. Eventually people will look for a CV, and we won't stay too long on this, but obviously we run live webinars and seminars in relation to CVs. We have our own UL CV guide, and we have an AI platform called Careers Connect. Maybe, Gavin, you might have the URL for that. You can drop it in.
That's in there now. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Good. Perfect. And that literally, I suppose, that's the process we would encourage you to go maybe to the guide, which is on the UL website, bring your CV up to a certain point, then put it into the Careers Connect platform, which will raise it up again before, I suppose, you'd send it out. Now, we would be at pains to say that this is your general stock CV, but as you target particular employers, you should tailor it to Gavin's earlier point. What are they interested in? So the bar trade might have different interests, or the hotel trade than retail, and really look closely at what they're saying on their job advertisement, and tweak it and tailor it to that audience every time. But remember then, obviously, to write the name of the version of CV, put it into a unique folder to remember what business got what CV, okay? Because it's you can get, I suppose, bit there when they're pointing out something and it's the bar trade CV going to the shop, etc. There's a question there, Martin. Do you want to read that one out?
Obviously, some students may have difficulty filling out their CV as they have little to no experience working in a position, part-time or full-time. So do you have any tips or advice for those students who may struggle to fill their CV and actually flesh it out?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the first thing I would say is we've all been there. So that should give you a level of comfort. Every single person had to start with no job, no experience, and just break through to get that first position. So I think myself and Gavin had a chat about this not so long ago. I mean, the worst thing you can do is put a negative slant on it and say, Gavin, I have absolutely no job experience in the restaurant trade. I'm sorry, and then put a very kind of pleading face and hope that Gavin, will feel sorry for me. No, I mean, what you need to be is prepared for that question. So if you're walking into a restaurant or a bar and you've never had any, that the first question will be, Brendan, do you have any prior experience in bar work? And I have to be ready and say no, but, and that but is when the sell comes in. I have had prior experience organizing events I'm in whatever society in UL. So you're looking at the attributes from the website. They might say, high work ethic, organization skills, dealing with people, and you need to be able to express where you have those skills, maybe not in the bar trade, as the example we're using now, but from other activities. And it could be sports, societies, volunteering. Would you agree, Gavin? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think to your point earlier on, I think I suppose take some kind of goodness out of this one, right? Okay, so I think employers are very aware that the opportunity for part-time opportunities in the last couple of years have been slim to nil, right? Okay, there's nobody who's sitting there thinking you should be coming out with 10 years experience or blah blah blah, right? Okay, so they're fully aware of that, and there's a lot of leeway there. But what they are looking for is a bit of intuition, right? Okay, and a bit of kind of, we call it cop on, and I don't mean that in any degenerative way, but it's in this thing of just don't walk in, just say, hey, got a job, right? Okay, because I mean, I even see it as people apply for here for jobs, right? Okay, so you kind of have to have done your piece of research relative to what Brendan said there. If you walk in, I'm going to use a bar as an example. If you walk into a bar, you say, look, I'm looking for some part-time work. I'm wondering if you have any available. And they say, do you have if you have any experience, say no, but you have to be sitting there ready to go. No, I don't, but I have previous experience with customers. I know the type of clientele you have here, right? Okay, whatever the case is, and you've done a piece of research on it, right? Okay, that you're aware that it's waiting at tables, it's also then serving from the bar, it's equally that's long hours, you're up for that, you're all blah 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 blah. So just having that ready, and that's what they're looking for, is that small bit of initiative, that intuition to know, I'm going to ask the question, you just be ready for it, right? Okay, so I think that's across the board. That, yeah, have you had experience of stacking shelves? No. How would I have had experience, right? Okay, because you have to you have to have had a job in the past to do that, right? Okay, so they're just looking for you to be aware of what's entailed in the job, and once you can talk to that, they kind of go, you know what, give this guy or girl a punt, right? Okay, yeah, let's just see, you know, what's the worst that could happen? They don't work out, we'll find somebody else, but let's give them a chance because they have a bit of initiative, right? Okay, and I think that's the important part.
Absolutely, and a lot of it is work ethic. You know, if you can talk and articulate and say, look, I'm averaging honors currently in my studies. You know, I hand in assignments early. I'm very, very organized. I also train 3 times a week, which means, you know, I'm up at the whatever hour, or I'm attending training, you know, so there won't be any issues with attendance, lateness, or whatever. So you do have to do that elevator pitch and be, as Gavin said, to be prepared for it. Now, the next stage of the process is to understand. So the summer employers or internship employers, how they will assess you. Now, if you are applying through a website, obviously they'll schedule an interview. But you know, you might be walking into an establishment, and as Gavin mentioned earlier, it would be good to find who the decision maker is, rather than giving the CV to any employee that just happens to pass your path. So actually to stand your ground and say, look, is there a manager that I can talk to for a moment? And then you mention your request for a summer position. Now there's a question there. Martin had to drop off. I think he's meeting an employer. So the question was in relation to appropriate etiquette when applying both in person and through email. Well, through email, it's just as we spoke about, you know, maybe your selling points, you'll attach the CV to the email, but you will, in the body of the email, you will literally spell out what your selling points are for the particular position. If you're walking into an establishment, again, everything like your grooming, what you're wearing, everything is being assessed the minute they lay eyes on you. So, I mean, I suppose if you're cycling and you have a pair of shorts and runners on and a pair of headphones around your neck, it's not going to give the best first impression. So on the day that you're approaching premises with your CV, you know, dress smart, iron the shirt, look your best, try and find and speak to the decision maker rather than just leaving the CV with somebody else, because you're missing that first impression. And quite often, if managers are free, and be prepared for this, they might say, have a look and have a listen to you and go, are you free now? I'll interview you now. Okay. So again, that tell me about yourself. Why you? Do you have any prior experience? We just went through that. No, but, or maybe you do. And then any knowledge that you have. So you need to kind of have your strategy worked out, that conversation worked out before you walk in. And it's only 3 or 4 questions. These interviews can be very short, 10, 20 minutes. Employers really have to make up their minds very quick. And to Gavin's point, there is a lot of goodwill out there. They know students have not had the opportunity. This is a new chapter where things are opening up. They're delighted, and they, to be able to increase their team, but they want the right team, and they have a choice. So put the effort into it. Any add on there, Gavin? Does that pretty much cover it?
I suppose the only thing I'll add on, right, I'll share a personal anecdote, which is, right, my own, one of my own, I won't say which one of my own kids was looking for a job, right, okay, he's only in transition year, right, okay, but it's still, same thing applies, right, okay, and he's going around local, right, okay, looking for an opportunity, and there was a few people saying, yeah, come back with a CV, whatever the case is. And there's one place he's particularly interested in, and he's gone to the place 3 times, right? Okay. And each time the manager has not been there. And the question that he never asks is, when will the manager be here?
Yeah.
And he just keeps wandering back down the road. It drives me crazy, right? Okay. And I'm saying to him, would you just not ask? So then when you actually are going back down, the manager's going to be there, or actually ring them and see if the manager's there before him. But I suppose you can't put whatever, an old head on new or young shoulders and stuff like that. But I suppose it is really important. I think it's important. If you just hand in a CV, it could go anywhere. And remember, that person is now selling you. The person you hand that CV to, right, Kate, is now saying, yeah, somebody dropped this CV in, right?
A UL student came in.
Yeah, just dropped a CV in. Whereas better for you to hand a CV to the manager if you can. So it's one of those things that you could just say, when will the manager be back, or will I wait? Just, it's very easy to say, will you wait, and say, yeah, he might be free in 10 minutes, right? Okay, don't get flustered by that, and just go out, wander around for a few minutes, and come back in and say, well, is the manager here? Because then that person knows that you're persevering and you really want to speak to the manager. They will find that person for you, right? Okay, is what I would say. Yeah.
Thanks for that, Gavin. And at the stage of the process of our cycle, the graph that we've been using to frame our discussion, is understanding how employers will assess you. So we've just talked about literally you're being assessed as you walk in the door. But other, I suppose, maybe larger employers, I know I heard somebody talking about Dunnes Stores recently and how they were surprised that for part-time positions they were put through psychometric assessment. Now, if you're not familiar with psychometric assessment, it's literally a tool used by employers for, I suppose, large volume recruitment, and it looks at your verbal aptitude, numeric aptitude, and abstract reasoning. And we have, I suppose, some again on the UL website, areas where you could go in and practice that. And Team Focus is the website that Gavin put into the chat box. So you'd be looking at verbal, numeric, and abstract reasoning, just to mention 3, to just practice that before, I suppose, going to large change or large retail outlets. They may direct you to psychometric assessment before they decide to call you for interview. And a lot of manufacturing sites would do something similar. So I suppose that brings us then to success, to the end of the cycle, and eventually that somebody will give you an opening and give you a chance and tell you that when you can start. So hopefully today has given you just food for thought, and we've shared our own experiences in relation to landing your summer job or summer internship. We would be happy to open the mics now if anyone had any questions. For a minute or two, we'd hang on here and we'd be happy to answer anything that we mightn't have covered that you were wondering about.